I never expected my quiet suburban life to turn into a full-blown HOA nightmare. It all started one sunny Saturday morning. I was sipping coffee on my porch, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed something unusual, a familiar figure tiptoeing across my yard. At first, I thought maybe it was a neighbor's kid chasing a ball, but then I realized it was Karen, the notorious HOA president everyone whispered about. And she wasn't just walking by. She was in my yard, wandering around my flower beds like she owned the place. My heart skipped a beat. I've dealt with HOA complaints before. Minor issues like grass height and mailbox placement. But this felt different. This was invasion, plain and simple. I knew I had to act fast, but I didn't want to confront her blindly. So I grabbed my phone and started recording, keeping my distance but making sure every step she took was caught on camera. Karen didn't even look surprised when she saw me through the window. In fact, she paused and gave me a smug little smile, the kind that screams, "I'm above the rules." Then she started rifling through my side gate area, inspecting my landscaping, pointing at my decorations, and muttering about violations I had never heard of. I could barely believe what I was seeing. How could someone with her position act so boldly? Trespassing on private property without a care in the world? I stayed calm, recording everything, because I had a gut feeling this wouldn't end well for her if I had proof. As she continued her inspection, I whispered to myself, this is exactly why people fear HOA overreach. I wanted to stop her, to yell, but something told me that reacting rashly would play into her narrative. Instead, I let her actions speak for themselves. Every step, every hand motion, every tisk and headshake she gave at my property was documented. When she finally left, I immediately checked the footage. My stomach sank and then tightened with resolve. Karen had crossed the line. Not only had she trespassed, but she also falsely documented violations she claimed I had committed. I knew this wasn't going to be just another HOA complaint. This was evidence. Real, undeniable proof that could expose her lies and protect my property. I decided then and there, I wasn't going to let her intimidate me or manipulate the system. I had a plan forming, a way to turn this situation on its head. And I knew one thing for sure. Once I acted, Karen wouldn't see it coming. After reviewing the footage, I realized Karen had underestimated me. She thought a casual stroll through my yard would intimidate me into compliance. She had no idea I had been preparing for situations like this for years, quietly documenting every interaction with the HOA, keeping detailed notes, and, most importantly, recording everything that could be used as evidence. Today, all of that preparation was about to pay off. The first step was making sure Karen couldn't cover her tracks. I decided to enhance my surveillance. I placed an extra camera near the side gate, angled perfectly to catch anyone attempting another unauthorized visit. Then I reviewed past HOA complaints and emails from Karen. The pattern was clear. She often exaggerated issues, sometimes inventing violations entirely. Now I had proof of her methods, and with the new camera, I could catch her in the act if she tried this again. I also knew I had to be strategic. Confronting her directly without backup could escalate things, and I didn't want her twisting the story to the HOA board. So, I contacted a friend who worked in legal compliance and explained the situation. He advised me to gather undeniable evidence, keep detailed notes of everything, and if necessary involve authorities. The goal was not just to defend myself, but to expose Karen's consistent pattern of abuse. That evening, I sat on my porch, sipping coffee as I pretended to relax, but my mind was racing. I knew she would return. She always did when she felt her authority was being challenged. And sure enough, a few days later, around mid-morning, I spotted her car slowly rolling down the street. My stomach tightened. I grabbed my phone and pressed record. As she stepped onto my property, I calmly called out, "Karen, again? You're on private property. Please leave." Her reaction was priceless. She feigned shock, then smirked, trying to play it off like she had every right to be there. She began inspecting my yard again, ranting about violations that didn't exist. But this time, I had her on camera, audio, and backed by all previous documentation. Every lie, every exaggerated claim, every trespassing step, recorded and undeniable. By the end of that tense morning, I had more than just footage. I had a case that couldn't be ignored. Karen thought she could intimidate me. But now the power had shifted. I wasn't just defending my property. I was building a story of abuse and lies that would expose her to the HOA board and potentially legal authorities. The stage was set. Karen's next move would determine how far this would go, and I had a feeling it would be her biggest mistake yet. The next few days felt like walking a tightrope. Every time I stepped outside, I half expected to see Karen lurking, clipboard in hand, ready to fabricate another violation. But I remained calm, knowing my footage and documentation were my strongest weapons. And as predicted, she didn't disappoint. By midweek, Karen returned, not quietly this time, but with that same smug confidence, as if she thought she could intimidate me into silence. She marched straight to my yard, ignoring the no trespassing signs, and began pointing at my plants and decorations, loudly declaring them violations. I stayed behind my window, recording everything. But this time I did more than record. I prepared a live backup of the footage to my cloud account and sent copies to my legal advisor. If she tried to deny her actions, she would be caught in a web of her own lies. Karen's overconfidence was her undoing. She started arguing with me from the edge of my property, claiming I'm just enforcing HOA rules. I remained calm, responding, "You're trespassing, Karen. Your claims have no basis here. Please leave." Her frustration was visible. She began raising her voice, trying to assert authority. But every gesture, every false claim, every step she took was now documented, irrefutable proof. The turning point came when she attempted to take photos of my property without permission. I calmly reminded her, "You cannot photograph private property without consent, especially after multiple warnings." Karen hesitated, visibly thrown off, realizing her tactics weren't working anymore. She tried to argue, but I simply held up my phone, showing her all previous footage of her trespassing. The look on her face was priceless, half embarrassment, half rage. Later that evening, I compiled the footage, time-stamped every moment, and created a clear record of her repeated trespasses and false accusations. I sent it to the HOA board with a concise, professional explanation. My goal wasn't just to defend myself, it was to reveal a consistent pattern of abuse of power. By the time the board reviewed it, Karen's credibility was already crumbling. For the first time, I felt a sense of control. The intimidation that had plagued me for months was turning into something tangible. I had the upper hand. Karen, who thought she could walk over boundaries without consequence, was now the one exposed, and her lies were being challenged with hard evidence. The stage was set for the final showdown, where her deceit would face undeniable truth. And I knew that once this unfolded, there would be no turning back for Karen. The day the HOA board reviewed the footage, I could hardly sit still. I knew that Karen's confidence was built on the assumption that no one would challenge her, especially with solid evidence. But now the tables had turned. I received an email inviting me to present my case at the next board meeting. This was my opportunity to confront Karen officially and ensure her pattern of abuse could no longer continue. When the meeting began, Karen tried her usual tactics, smiling smugly, interrupting others, and trying to assert authority. But the moment I played the footage, the room went silent. Every step she took on my property, every exaggerated complaint, and every false accusation was now visible to everyone. The camera captured not only her trespassing, but also her attempts to manipulate the HOA rules for personal gain. The board members exchanged glances, clearly shocked. Karen's confidence began to falter as the evidence spoke louder than her words ever could. I calmly explained each violation she had falsely claimed and backed it up with timestamps, photos, and my detailed notes. I presented the pattern of her repeated trespasses, emphasizing that this was not an isolated incident but a consistent misuse of her authority. Karen tried to defend herself, insisting she was just enforcing rules, but the board wasn't buying it. The evidence was irrefutable. By the end of the meeting, the board made a unanimous decision. Karen would face disciplinary action, including a formal warning, fines for trespassing, and mandatory ethics training. They even advised her to apologize for her behavior. I watched as the woman who had spent months trying to intimidate me was now forced to answer for her actions. It was a moment of quiet satisfaction. I didn't gloat, but I felt a deep sense of justice. After the meeting, neighbors approached me, thanking me for exposing Karen's behavior. Many admitted they had experienced similar harassment, but never had the courage or proof to stand up. My case became a reminder that even when facing someone who abuses authority, documentation, patience, and strategy can turn the tide. As I returned home, I walked through my yard, looking at my plants and decorations, feeling a newfound peace. Karen had tried to intimidate me, but I had not only defended my property, I had exposed the truth. From that day forward, my yard remained undisturbed, and the HOA board had a clear reminder: no one is above the rules. The lesson was clear: standing your ground, gathering evidence, and remaining calm under pressure can transform a threatening situation into one of empowerment. Karen may have underestimated me, but in the end, justice was served. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more wild HOA encounters, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a run-in with a crazy HOA or a Karen neighbor? I'd love to hear your story, and don't forget to like this video if you want more jaw-dropping real-life confrontations.